We've got Terry Cousins, who many of you know is manager of continuous improvement here at Munson Healthcare, and Amanda Ramel, who's in our safety department, who's one of our safety specialists that works with our team. And you guys know her probably from the voice world, I'm guessing, and this is going to be the Huddle Talks.
Huddle talk. We should huddle like this. Huddle. We're huddling.
Ready, break. Hi, guys. Well, that's a hard act to follow coming up behind Ms. Frazier. So you guys have already heard this morning a little bit about reliability culture. You've heard about continuous improvement culture. You've even heard about safety culture. But what we're really here to talk to you a little bit about today is where those worlds collide. And when that happens through safety, there's really no end to the good things that can come of it. So we heard Dr. Sutcliffe say today, Dr. Peterson said, is safety the thing to huddle around? Is that the thing to get culture moving? And she said, well, that's quite broad. You need to have an understanding of what your gap is, or what is it that's not going well for your culture related to safety. So I guess with that, I kind of impose some information here. We still have serious safety events in our organization. As Al pointed out this morning, we had 35 last year throughout the healthcare system. We had, hundreds of employee injuries. So we have a call for safety to be at the center of what we're going to do. So when they came to us and asked Terry and I, they said, would you guys like to talk about this huddle project that you're doing? Actually, before that, they said, would you guys like to work together on standardizing a huddle for the entire healthcare system? We were like, yeah, of course. We jumped at it. Because the thing that we understand very much is that these aren't different worlds. The continuous improvement world, the safety world, they're not different. We talk the same talk, we might use some different words. But the goal and the outcomes are the same. All of us, whether we're continuous improvement, patient safety, nurses, quality, we all came into healthcare because we have some intrinsic need within us to help people, right? From right down to our insurance people who understand these complex insurance industries that are helping our patients get the most of their benefits. To the cleanliness of the facility issues that our housekeepers deal with every day to help our people heal, and then down to our bedside nurses who are actually providing the treatments. We all came into this with that need, with that desire to be these healthcare superheroes. And we know that improving continuously, combined with safety at the center of those thoughts, is really going to help drive us into the next phase of Munson Healthcare as a whole. Wow.
I know, really. That's great. So I'm old. And so you'll see me taking glasses off and putting them on, and you'll see me acting confused, and it's not an act. And you'll see me using my standard work and my cue cards, because I can't remember anything anymore. So those are my disclaimers. Heather had disclaimers, I have disclaimers. So and I can't see the slides unless I do this. So Amanda talked to you about the fact that we are talking about safety huddles, and so we're going to talk about a Munson Healthcare shift huddle and what makes it an effective, and we're going to talk about what the current state looks like and what the future state we hope will look like. We're going to talk to you about how teams use lagging indicators and leading indicators to change their work and to focus their attention. And we're going to talk to you about how we will deploy. So when we're done with our talking and your practicing, you should be able to discuss the Munson Healthcare Standard Shift Huddle. You should be able to describe the key elements of that shift huddle. You should be able to consider how huddles use both leading and lagging indicators, and you should be able to discuss the rollout plan that we are presenting. So that's our goal. So the proof is in the huddling. Proof in the pudding, proof in the huddling. So lots of industries huddle, and we've heard a little bit about that this morning. And lots of quality and safety agencies throughout healthcare talk about huddling. Huddling is a key component of lean organizations. If you walk into the front door of any lean organization, you will see people huddling throughout the day. And so there are other reasons to huddle too. So the Joint Commission, you're familiar with the Joint Commission. So the Joint Commission, they're compiling all of these incidents and looking at this data, and they're telling us, 80% of the time it's miscommunication that leads to a medication error or some other kind of incident, right? We have the IHI, who also does lots of research around best practice, they are advocating for the increased use of huddles prior to care delivery. And then we have the AMA, and the AMA working in collaboration with physician practices to, they went as far as creating a huddle toolkit for physician practices to start deploying huddles within their system. So, oh, there it is. Alrighty. So we talked to you about the evidence. We want to show you some testimonials.
Good morning, it's Aloha Friday. Today we have 22 GIs, 1 cardiac cath, 5 angios, 6 CTs, and 2 fluoros.
I'm Carolyn Sanderson. I'm a registered nurse at Kaiser Permanente Moanalua Medical Center, and we're on Oahu. We probably started huddling, I'm guessing, about a year and a half ago, and it's usually very brief, 5 at the most, very 10 minutes.
Few announcements quickly. The EKG machine is now wireless.
For patients, the wheelchairs, make sure there's a wheelchair open.
Basically what we do is we communicate what we're expecting in terms of patients for the day, what the expectations are in terms of each staff member, and we get considerations from the staff.
When we used to have staff meetings, I don't even know what they were, once a year, and there'd be a pile this big and a 2-hour Instead of just the people who sit on the UBT team, it's really our whole department because everybody contributes and is very involved.
The staff is so engaged. I believe that the key to workforce engagement is definitely communication. It has helped alleviate a lot of my day-to-day stresses. Rather than employees coming to me with problems, hey, what do we do about this? They come to me with, hey, Janet, we identified that there's this problem. This is what we want to do.
I watched the movie Legally Blonde, and in the movie there's a snap cup and someone writes something good about someone. So we're doing this huddle thing, and I thought, well, this is a good positive way to show our appreciation to our staff members.
I have snaps to Surgery Center staff for training us and being great neighbors.
Absolutely.
I have snaps to all who worked in ASR yesterday. Thank you from CT, Paris.
Oh, yeah. What it does is it really, really, really makes everyone start the day off nice.
Our huddle is our vehicle to share everything, whether it is the project or somebody's birthday or whatever it is. So for our projects, we talk about it every day in the huddle.
Clutter was a huge problem. We have a really busy department. Gurneys are coming in and out all the time. As we started talking about it in the huddle and during work, everybody had the same problem. And one day we finally said, let's just put a blue line down, and it was instant.
It's real easy to see that a high-performing team can benefit from huddles. If we're engaged as a team, we're better able to help each other out.
We've always had a problem with trying to figure out the best way to get information out to everybody. We've tried voicemails, we've tried staff messages, we've tried emails and Lotus Notes. People still felt like they weren't getting the information they needed.
Good morning. Happy Monday.
So every Monday morning before we start at 8 o'clock, we have a department huddle.
So just a quick thank you to Hawaii for giving us the idea for the snaps.
Snaps to Jeanette and Celeste for making our patients feel welcome and directing them.
Snaps to Sherry, thanks for helping with that long nursing home form.
Thank you for all your tactful help.
Being acknowledged for those little special things. And like when I get one from somebody else, I'm like, wow, they actually noticed that I did that.
It just makes you feel better about the day, about yourself and what you've done.
Kind of thought, oh, is it going to be kind of hokey? But by the end, everybody's kind of have this kumbaya feeling. So I think it's a good thing.
I just think as a nurse manager, I can't be everywhere at every minute of the day. And so not only does it help the team to be able to recognize each other, but it really helps me to be more aware of what's going on in my department.
If it helps our communication and our sense that we're on the same team, that really benefits our patients. And they can feel that as well.
Happy staff leads to happy members.
There's just such a warm feeling about working here. There's its own unique ohana, which is the Hawaiian word for family. Patients actually enjoy being in our area. They hear the huddles, they hear our laughter, they hear our camaraderie, they hear our teamwork. And I can't tell you how many patients say, well, you guys really enjoy working together. And so the patients hear that, and I think it really does benefit their care.
Some of the things that stand out for me in that is the power of communication, the power of recognition. A little bit of recognition can go a long way. The fact that they become problem solvers, and the building of the teamwork, the creation of a team by going through this process and sharing this time together. So here's the great news. The great news is that many areas throughout Munson Healthcare System are huddling already. We did a poll at the Munson Medical Center, Traverse City managers meeting, and then we surveyed representatives from all the different entity hospitals and asked about the huddle practices. And what we learned is that close to 70% of our areas throughout our healthcare system are currently huddling, which is great and wonderful news. Many of them are doing them in kind of a face-to-face sort of a scenario, and others are doing it via email or print. And some of the things you heard these managers talking about, the fact that, I can't be everywhere, and, shifts are coming and going. These are the same sort of struggles that our teams are facing as well. So most people are doing it, and then we traveled around. We found different forms and forms that are meeting the needs of these teams. And so that's what our current state is. People are huddling, finding effective huddles, finding ways that they'd like to improve their huddles, and they're using different forms of visual management and standard work to collect their information. So we've gotten together with some groups, created some focus groups, and talked about huddling and what they'd like to get out of huddles, what their teams want to get out of huddles. And this is a wordle that came from all of their goal statements for what they're looking for. So, you see the big words here. You see safety. You see bringing problems to the surface. You see communication. So great, that's what huddling is all about. That's what we're working for in our design.
So then we kind of asked ourselves, well, we've got quite a few areas doing huddles already, 70% is not too bad. So what is our cause for standardization? What's going to be our compelling reason to go out and say, hey, you're doing it, but now we want you to do it a little bit differently? And so we looked at the two worlds that we live in the safety culture world and the continuous improvement world, and we said, well, in continuous improvement, we know that standardization reduces variation, right? That's pretty obvious. Well, in the safety culture world, variation leads to error. So we already know that standardization and less variation are going to help reduce our error rates, increase our communication, and those two worlds collided once again. So when the standard process exists, the problems also become more clear because it's either A or B. And when it's not either A or B, you figure out, just like Heather said, you start using some of these other tools, maybe the problem solving, to figure out where that deviation is happening and start working it and figuring out, is it better, is it worse, and how do we bring it back to standard to make sure everybody's doing it the same way every time. So benefits of standardization, pretty clear to see, improving safety and quality, just like I mentioned. How about reducing costs? We heard this morning that in the US, our healthcare costs are the highest in the world. So if we can standardize some things and start to help drive some of those costs down, every little bit helps, right? Increase in productivity. We know that there is a lot of time waste for people running around looking for things, trying to figure out if what they're doing is the right way or the wrong way, and who said it's the right way or the wrong way. Eliminating waste of overproduction, oh, I didn't know the forms were here, so I went and made 200 more copies. It happens on every unit, every department. It doesn't have to be clinical or non. Improves morale when it's fair and objective, reinforces positive behaviors. Some of those things, like I have what I need to do my work today, those things are very easy and clear when they're standard and people know where to go no matter if you're here or if you're there. And it creates that basis for the continuous improvement. Like the one manager said, people are coming to me not only with what their issues they're identifying, but also the ideas for improving them right there. It becomes less of this isn't working, go fix it, to this isn't working, I think this is how we can fix it together. So when we started thinking about this, we said, how are we going to do this? What is our work going to look like, and how are we going to help others to be able to standardize their work as well? And so we said, okay, first of all, we need to identify the standard. And as Terry mentioned, we really kind of went out and we asked people questions. We brought in some pilot units. We observed a lot of huddles. Pretty much anybody who'd let us come watch, we did. And we decided on a few things that seemed standard. And so then the next step will be to ensure that everybody understands that standard. So here's a little introduction today. Confirm that it's fair and reasonable and can be followed. We don't want to make something that's not sustainable, that's not practical, and that does not provide quality and value to the people using it. And that's, again, work with our pilot units and those that come along. And then implement and train and launch this, and coach and do feedback in that continuous improvement cycle, which Terry's going to talk to you a little bit more about at the end. But we also want to keep that in mind as we're going along. So we have adjusted and checked and adjusted with these pilot groups, and we have units out there such as A4 right now that have really kind of been the kickoff to this, the jumping off point I like to call them, and they keep improving. In fact, our Foundations of Safety Culture video is already out of date from the new huddle that they're doing on their unit now. So that's how much they're checking and adjusting. And then our big question, and this was a really big one for me and Terry, is how standard is standard? Because it's really hard as non-clinical people, and it's really hard as change leaders, no matter what your status is, to go into a unit or go to a department that's doing something, and especially if they feel like they're doing it really well, and say, hey, thanks for your efforts, but now we're going to do it differently, right? So you have to have this story, you have to be able to take their feedback, and we had to figure out how to put it in a package that still was flexible and fluid for them to make it valuable. So the things that we kind of came up with was we want everybody to use standard work and a visual component. So what does that look like? We left some flexibility in that. We're going to show you some of these tools, but we said, okay, we're going to try these 3 or 4 tools, and when we get good feedback and tweak them enough, we're going to kind of put them out in this toolkit and say, here's some standard work. Figure out which one works for you. Figure out how to mold it into what you need for your department every day, and use that. We said we want a visual board, a huddle board, and she showed you that picture. There's several of them out there already. In fact, the one on the paper right here came off of a unit that I may or may not have stole it from this morning, who's really just trying something right now. They're just brand new at this, and instead of investing in a big board right now, they're kind of trying it on paper and seeing what they like. The second component was that it needs to be in that True North framework. And we've heard about it from Al. We live it every day. I know you guys have, some units have very prescribed things, happies and hacks and CAUTIs and things if you're in an inpatient unit. But we decided as a healthcare system a number of years ago that True North is really what's going to drive where we want to be in the future, right? If we keep all of those areas in our focus with the patients at the center, we're going to start doing good work and achieve the goals that we're out to achieve. So it just made sense that when we're going to huddle, when we're going to sit together every day or stand together, and take that 5 or 10 minutes to prepare for our day, that we do it within that True North framework. Using both leading and lagging indicators, which we're going to get into a little bit. We've heard Dr. Sutcliffe touch on that just a little bit earlier. The next component was that it can't be any more than 10 minutes in length. This is very much driven by frontline staff. They want to be there, they want to communicate, they want to know what's going on, but we all have that time pressure. And when you start to get over, there's research behind it, and there's a viable frontline compelling stories about, I can't be here anymore, I have to get out to the floor, I need to go get report, so under 10 minutes. Everyone participates. And when I started this work, I thought, well, yeah, everybody participates. Why wouldn't they? I'll tell you, this is a tricky one, and this is something that really develops as time goes on. We have not had a unit yet that jumped right in with everybody in the huddle talking. So that's something that's a goal. That's the good standard, that's the best practice, but it's not always the easiest step. And then it occurs at every major shift at the same time every day. And again, this was another one, because were we the person or the people that were going to go in and say, you have to do it at 7 a and you have to do it at 7 p. In patient safety, we started off at 2 in the afternoon or 1 in the afternoon because that seemed to be the only time we could get a breath in the day. And so we had to start somewhere, and that's where we started. But the key is the consistency and the standardization of time, place, and every major shift so that everybody has what they need to start their day and to do their best work. So we're going to show you a little video here of the A4 group. Again, this was kind of our jumping off point. These guys have been working on this for a while. They've taken a lot of feedback from their staff. They were incorporating some of that True North stuff that was important to us and to this work. And so this is kind of where we started off. Will it click on the, oh, no. It's down there.
Good morning, everybody. We are at 35 patients. We have 20 total fall risks, 18% on alarms. We have no risks for violence. We had 8 admissions last night. We have influenza isolations in 4520, 4509, and 4507B. We're trialing 4510 without a safety companion. 1 cardioversion today, 15 potential discharges, 5 NFDs, and they are ready to go. 4 patients going to cath lab and 2 other procedures. We've had 19 days since the fall and 133 days since the fall of injury. So keep doing what you're doing. We want to cause no harm, keep your patients safe. So this time we'll go around and identify our high-risk patients or how you can help your teammates today. Audrey, could you start?
Yes, looks like I'm sitting with Caitlin, so she's got a busy assignment. I'll be helping her, and then it looks like I have a cardioversion in 25A.
I'll go ahead and you guys let me know if you need anything today with your assignments. Nursing assistants, please let me know if you have trouble getting to your breaks. And then Erin, since that patient in 10 is trialing without a sitter, just let me know if we need to change things up for safety.
I have 3A who has a port, so we'll make sure we get a HEPA cleanse on that one. And I'm sitting by Steve who has a 2A who's recently had a fall. I'll help him.
I have the patient in 20 who requires a lot of time and attention. Also, I can help Caitlin in 15 who also requires a lot of time and attention.
They were all together in one room. This whole thing lasted about 3 minutes and 30 seconds. They went through a board that identified some of their leading and lagging indicators, census for the day, days since their last SSEs, and OSHA recordables. And then each nurse took a turn going around the room, and nursing assistant, and on the board where they had happies, they'd have the room associated with it. So the nurse would say something like, I have room 3 who is on the board for being at risk for a happy today. And then the nursing assistant would say, I'm helping Sarah, she has room 3. And what it did is it gave them the opportunity to address all of their true north areas in preparation for their day. It heightened their situational awareness about what was happening on their unit, the information they needed to know as they hit the ground running for their 12-hour shifts. I mean, most of these people are here for at least 12 hours. So they talked about safety, and not only were they talking about their metrics of where are we at with falls, they were identifying people who may be at a higher fall risk that day and why, and who was responsible for caring for them, and who is that person's pod partner, so if they're busy, they're already aware that they have a higher risk person. They talked about barriers to flow. We didn't get to hear that piece, but when somebody was talking about a discharge, an inspected admission that were looking like it was going to happen around the same time. So I see this barrier that could potentially cause a bottleneck in my day, and who's there to help me? They talked about, they were improving their communication, right, by being in the room. Everybody was getting the same message at the beginning of the day. It wasn't getting relayed down the line. I mean, my husband's a fisherman, and the fish come off the boat, then they're this big, but by the time it gets, to the cleaning station the next day, it was this big, right? So everybody's getting the same message. It aligned the team. Everybody knew what was going on. They addressed where the managers would be throughout the day, who might be covering, and then they talked about their patients. Every single person talked about their patient in one way or another. So it really gave them the opportunity right from that first moment in the door to look at what their day was going to look like. They had some better questions when they went to report out, hey, I noticed what's going on with, and that communication even between the ongoing or the offgoing and the oncoming has improved greatly. And they're using things like the huddle board, they're using some standard work, and we're going to show you some examples of that.
I'm going to go off script for just a minute, and because when Amanda was talking and she was beautifully describing how effective this is in the inpatient setting, and one of our pilot groups is actually Traverse Heart and Vascular, and so they're doing it, so it's an ambulatory physician practice, and they are huddling, and the same sort of things can occur, different questions, different comments, but they can talk about patient safety, like so-and-so's coming in today, the last time they were here, they were really upset, but the spouse is gonna be with them, we called yesterday, it's gonna be okay, but be on alert. And, or looks like we're gonna have a backup because Dr. So-and-so is also on call for Nuke Med. And so the scenarios are different, but the categories are the same. So, all right. So, When we did the work with our focus groups in our pilot areas, what we wanted to do was put together a nice packet. And so what we've created is actually a toolkit that includes education and training about huddles, the importance of huddles, some of the evidence that we shared with you today, and some of the best practices of how to perform huddles, a clear articulation of what the standard expectations are, and then we've created some things like, for example, standard work. So standard work in continuous improvement, it's a part of our world, and it's also a part of the safety world. So the use of standard work is a key behavior, and it's just standard practice. It's the documentation of the best known way of doing something at that moment in time. It's fluid, though, in that it's going to evolve as people make improvements. You test it and you see, is this our new best practice? Is this our new standard? And if so, then you change the standard work to reflect those enhancements, and then you standardize it again across the system or across the unit and area. So there's a standard work tool. It includes images, it includes the steps, the roles, and the approximate time that it should take. And so this is an example of the standard work for A4's huddle. Part of that standard work would include the use of a checklist, and the checklist was designed to have enough information there to guide the conversation. It kind of mimics the boards and the way the boards are set up, so the person leading the huddle can be working right from the checklist and or from the visual board and following that flow. It has enough scripting to make sure that the key elements of a standard shift huddle are intact, and then it has all of the True North things, and this is where the customization comes in and where the unit performing the huddle can put in under their True North header the things that are most important, their way that they're going to do patient satisfaction, the things that are important to them as far as quality issues and safety issues.
So that's just right. Just like Terry touched on kind of already, how standard is standard. It's really that True North framework. It's using the best practice of standard work, True North framework, everybody involved, same place, same time, everybody speaks, and realizing, as Terry said a little bit too, that it does have to evolve. If you are a unit that really doesn't see central lines and you haven't had a CLABSI in a million years, that might not be something that you hammer on every day, even though you're an inpatient unit and that's kind of one of your prescribed things. But instead, you may have seen an uptick in something else that affects quality or safety, and you're going to be able to put that in there because it's within that True North framework. So using the leading and lagging indicators is a big component of the huddle and of making the huddle successful to, achieve the purpose, which is to communicate in real time about the things that will affect your day within that True North framework. And so some of our metrics in True North are very lagging. We get the survey results from last year, and then we put in plans to try to get them from this year, and that's what we work at. And we keep an eye on it. Even though maybe we made our leaps and bounds in the first quarter, we don't want that to fall off because our next measure isn't coming up for another 2 or 3 quarters. So those lagging indicators are the harm events. That happened already. So now that's in the lagging indicator. We didn't prevent it. The days since last. It's important to keep those on your mind. I mean, you can celebrate them as successes when those numbers start to climb, but you also are heightened awareness when they're smaller. Costs and liabilities. I think another thing that is a big takeaway for me on this is that when you communicate necessarily to proactively plan, you have to include both of these because if you don't know your lagging indicators or the history, what happened last shift? I mean, something that happened last shift could very well flow over into your day and cause a bottleneck. And I always hear too sometimes, Sometimes I hear people say, I don't know why my manager picked this to work on. Why are we working on this? Well, sometimes they know something or they only hear that 4% of what's going on. They hear a problem or they see a problem, and so they start working on that, and they think that that is the most effective thing for that unit, right? We're going to fix this and everybody's going to be happy. But that thing is just the tip of the iceberg. It's only really those frontline staff that know all of the problems. So if you look at the iceberg diagram, it says 96% of problems are not known to those general managers, and only 4% are known to the top managers. So the people who can really help to drive and direct the work aren't always aware of these things going on under the water. And when frontline staff know about that, and when you're communicating that real time through those leading indicators, who's got Foley's in right now? How long have they been in, and how can we start working to get them out? Who's a fall risk? What are the barriers to flow? Observations of positive and negative behaviors. When you're nipping those things right away, that's when you're really going to start to drive those metrics, improve communication, efficiency, reliability, intended outcomes. We talked a lot about variation in outcomes in healthcare. Standardizing those things, bringing them to the attention is really going to help standardize those outcomes. So how do people incorporate these leading and lagging indicators into their huddles? So here's the real life example. I thought I only needed a picture, but I went and stole the board. So this is an example of B3 South, who has just pretty recently started doing in-person major shift huddles. They do them every morning. They're experimenting right now, 7:25 a.m. and 7:25 p.m. And so they created their huddle board basically with the True North areas and the patients in the center. And things that they look at every day for their leading indicators are, what is their census and what are their admissions and discharges looking like for the day? That definitely gives you an idea of what flow might be like. They look at things under quality, like which rooms have patients in them that are at higher risk for things like CAUTI, CLABSI, falls. They look at their healthcare team and they identify first thing every morning and very clearly for anybody who's on and off the unit, how many RNs are on the unit and how many NAs. And then if they have any sitters, they'll put that on there too. They're becoming situationally aware of what's going on in their unit every day, first thing in the morning. But they always look at their lagging indicators as well. They want the big picture, so they need to know where they're at and what they're driving. So under quality, they're not just looking at which rooms are at risk, but they're looking at how many days they've been successful in preventing those risks from becoming events. They look at their Great Place to Work survey results. We only do that once a year, but they look at them and they talk about them, and it's a great opportunity for the huddle leader to remind everybody what things they're doing to work on their Great Place to Work results, or celebrate how great they are. They talk about their HCAP scores every day. I mean, this unit in particular is up in the 93% or something like that, and they celebrate every day. We are killing it, guys. And by the way, we're still working on encouraging our patients to ask questions. So they're looking at their rates, they're looking at their performance over time, and they're looking at their trends. So, because I only see a couple people sleeping, but we're going to take a minute, and I'd like to call up all of my people who were my friends before lunch and before I gave them a little cue card, if you guys would come on up.
The Amanda volunteers.
The Amanda volunteers, not the Terry volunteers.
Terry volunteers.
It's gonna be good, trust me. Oh no.
Perfect. All right. So let's gather around our huddle board, crew. Welcome to the Amanda unit 7 a.m. huddle. Guys, remember that we're here this morning for this shift huddle to support our team by communicating in real time, proactively planning for our day, and doing it within a True North framework. So thanks for being here, guys. Our current census today is 20 patients. We're expecting 1 surgical and 1 medical admission, and we're expecting 3 discharges, so that should remain pretty steady throughout the day. Under quality, we can note that it's been 118 days since our last HAPI, you guys. Great job. But we do have risks for HAPI today in rooms 2 and 7. It's been 15 days since our last fall, and we had a good run going before that, so we're really pushing on that one to get our numbers back up. We only have 1 person at higher than normal fall risk, and they're in room 1. It's been 54 days since our last CAUTI. We have 1 person with an indwelling catheter, and that's in room 6, so we'll look at that this morning. And it has been forever and a day since our last CLABSI. Way to go, keep it up. If anybody has any concerns about central, all right. Guys, for the team today, we do have 3 RNs and only 1 NA, so we're not really down, but we don't have that extra one that might float through. We do have patients that are at potential risk for violence in room 6, and that's Sam, and room 1 is Andrea. So let's all be careful around those rooms. Let's offer additional support. So I'd like to just take a minute, and we'll go around the room. Why don't you let us know your name and any high-risk patients or help you might need, or who you might be willing to help today.
My name is Sarah. I don't have any patients with potential for violence or at risk for hacks today, but I do have 2 complex discharges happening this morning and a planned surgical admission early this afternoon. I will communicate with Sam and our charge nurse for needs, but I anticipate needing help with 9 a.m. med pass. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Sarah. Okay. I have a patient for potential violence in room 6 and a catheter in place greater than 24 hours, very bad, that I will be working on this morning in room 8. I don't have any planned discharges and I will be available to help you, my podmate, with any of her needs. Sarah. Yes.
My name is Sherry, and I'll be your EVS worker until 1500. Turning the room over for the planned admits will be my focus, but I also need to try to finish waxing the floor in room 12. So if you're looking for me, I may be down there. Let me know if you have any immediate needs. My pager number's on the board.
I'm Julie. I'm the unit nursing assistant today. I'll be focusing on the patients with potential for hospital-acquired conditions in rooms 2, 7, and 8. I will also be rounding every 15 minutes on the patient in room 1 who's a high fall risk. Please let me know if you need a hand throughout the day.
Hi, guys. I'm Dr. Peterson, but you can call me Tom or Tango Papa. I'll be the hospitalist for your unit today. I'm also covering 2 other units, B4 and B5. That's Bravo 4 and Bravo 5. Please page me for any issues. My pager number's on the board. We good? We good? Thumbs up? All right. High five.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I have 2 patients with potential for happy that are queued to our turns in room 2 and in room 7. 1 patient in room 12 that is potential for violence, and 1 planned discharge. I have a medical admission this morning as soon as I'm finished with the report, so I might need help with my first turns on the happy patients. My afternoon doesn't look bad, so I can help Sarah with her admission if needed.
Great, thanks guys. I just wanted to remind you that it's been 15 days since our last serious safety event, which was our fall, but it's only been 2 since our last OSHA injury, and both of these were sharps issues related to full containers. So I'm going to try it around, and I'm going to ask EVS for a little bit of help too looking at those sharps containers, but please make sure you mention it or pull them down if they're full. Our safety behavior this month is questioning attitudes, so we're all practicing validating and verifying, just speaking up and asking those questions if something doesn't seem right or if you need a little hand. Our most recent HCAP scores are 93.8%, you guys. This is amazing. We are in that upper quartile. Woohoo! We're going to keep up the good work, and this month or this week we're working on encouraging our patients to ask questions. So not just saying, do you have any questions, but really saying, what questions do you have before you leave the room? That's about all I have. Does anybody have a safety story they'd like to share?
I had a great peer coaching opportunity with a new transport person yesterday. She returned the patient to their room and did a great job of reapplying O2, bringing the bedside table into position, and lowering the bed. However, I was able to remind her to grab the call light as well, and we prevented a potential fall.
That's awesome. Great job. All right, guys, make sure you're checking the board for any education and news updates throughout the day, and make it a great day. Good job, guys. Just under 5 minutes, so that's great. And my small unit, Amanda, all have what they need to do for the day. That really was a clinical example, and sometimes those are a little bit easier. I mean, a lot of times those units have very clearly defined things that are really going to set them up for success with that patient right there in the forefront. And sometimes it gets a little harder when you're in some units that don't have that direct patient contact, or maybe your metrics are a little bit more gray. But Terry is going to give us an example of one of those.
So I have a slew of volunteers out there, and if they can come on up, that'd be great. And I think, I took theater in school, so we're going to stay, stage front, stage left, stage right, maybe facing our audience. Holy really, I have all these volunteers. Okay, so this is because I made a mistake, and I gave out more cards than I should have. But so pretend you're seeing double. Okay, I thought they had it closed. This is a non-clinical setting. Most clinical settings are probably going to be doing their huddle daily or twice daily, every major shift change. So this is kind of built on the huddle that the continuous improvement team has. And so we do huddle every day, and we would do a deeper dive into a category, perhaps one day a week, and spread some of the things out. So let's give this a go. Are we ready? Oh, no. Okay. Okay. So good morning, everyone. This is our shift huddle for Thursday, June 21st. And it's a reminder that the purpose of our shift huddle is to communicate in real time the day's events within a True North framework in order to support the team and patients, prepare for the day, proactively plan, and align with True North. So I'm this week's facilitator, so let's get started because it's 9 o'clock, and I'll start the timer. Alrighty, so under operations, we have no call-ins or PTO today, so we're all here. Isn't that great? Is anyone working elsewhere in the system today? Yes, I'm leaving for Cadillac, and I should be leaving around 1 o'clock. Okay, thank you so much. And Documenter, do we have any standing or all invite meetings on the calendar today?
Yes, we do. We've got an infection control meeting where we're going to talk about performance with our cohort units.
Okay, great.
That's not on my calendar. I think I originally thought I was going to be out today, so I may have declined that.
John, could you forward that appointment to Kayla? Great, thanks so much. Good. Okay, so let's go around our circle now and tell everyone what our priority is for the day. And this is where you're going to notice my mistake because there would really only be like 6 people in the circle. Okay, alrighty. So, who wants to go first? Yes.
So for shared learning, Rebecca and I had a great experience at the Michigan Lean Conference. The coaching session was great, and we will share the materials at our staff meeting.
Alrighty. So we're looking for people's priority for the day.
I have one.
Okay, go.
So I'm going to be working with the ED team on their A3s. They have a monthly performance review meeting next week.
All right, terrific.
I'm finishing up some orientation materials and then getting a hospital tour with Caleb. Julie, can I join you on your A3 meeting?
You bet.
I have a data request that I'm working on and plan to meet with the pediatrics team later today to play catch ball and validate the findings.
Alrighty.
I'll be working with Heather. We're setting up for the lean simulation that we're doing with Diane's team tomorrow, and we are still working on the checklist.
I have a quality metric.
We'll come right back to that. Alrighty, good. Any other priorities for the day? Yeah.
I'll be working with my model learning area leader on their leader standard work.
All right, terrific. And my priority is getting to the reimbursement request process since we're getting to the end of the fiscal year. So, all righty. So under our safety category, could someone please tell me if there's any potential safety, anyone have any potential safety concerns? Yes?
Project milestones, and I am sensing that they were afraid to ask for help, so I wonder if there are some psychological safety issues. I'm going to discuss this with Lindsay since she has worked with them before, and she'll help me with a plan.
That's great. Okay, this week's safety behavior is peer checking and peer coaching. So could one person please share with us safety behavior citing that they may have had?
I have an example. I have asked Rebecca to look over my data and double check my formulas and gut check my thought process.
All right, good. Thanks, Rebecca. Thank you. Terrific. So since today's Thursday, we're going to take a deeper dive into our quality metric. And our quality focus for this month is the development of standard work and the movement of improvement tickets throughout our systems. So who's reporting out today on quality?
So our development of standard work continues to improve. We have 10 processes requiring standard work at this time. We have 4 completed as of 6/20, so we are at 40%, 40%. That is up over last week's number.
Great. Thank you so much, and I see you updated the board with that graphic, so thank you very much for that. And Under healthcare team, our Great Place to Work is taking place through the end of the month. The survey is available, so please take this opportunity to make your voice heard. Our target is 100% participation, and we are currently at 50%. So if the rest of you could get that done, that'd be awesome. And remember I told you I was old and have trouble reading? Okay, so does anyone need any help from the team today?
I could use some help loading the car for tomorrow's training.
All right, great. Any helpers? Good, thank you. So we'll meet up maybe 4 o'clock to do that? Sure. Perfect, that's a great plan. Okay, so let's wrap up now with any kudos, announcements, or shared learning. Kudos. Oh.
Kudos goes to the Quality and Safety Department for a great reliability conference this week.
Okay, and any announcements?
I have an announcement. There's a blood drive tomorrow, so if you give a pint, you get a pint.
Who's buying?
And I shared out of turn.
Sure, that's okay. Sure. All right, so everyone go and have a great day, and remember that we're here to make good things happen for other people. So rock on. Thank you.
So thank you to all of our brave voluntold. I know I snookered my group for sure.
And I have your prizes in this bag up here, so don't leave without them. Because they were brave volunteers, they get Saklis for safety candy bars and drama dinosaurs. So.
So those were some examples, and the key components that we want you to take away from that is that both occurred around a visual board, right? Both used a type of standard work. We both had our checklist or our scripting. Both had participation by everybody that was in the unit, and both included the things within True North that helped us to prepare, plan, communicate, and be ready for our day. These huddles evolve and improve, though. So you could see in the one that I did, the CLABSI thing was not really an issue for our unit. It's a True North metric. We want to keep it within our scope of, hey, this is going on. We might not be the contributor to that metric at the moment, but we don't want to lose sight of it. However, we didn't spend time dwelling on it in day sense and maybe keeping it as much in the forefront. But as these evolve and improve, it's a great opportunity for managers and leaders to become coaches, to review the checklists and huddle boards, see where they need to evolve, to give feedback and communication on teamwork and facilitation skills of those doing it. Many of these huddles are run by charge nurses or coordinators, but there's no prescription for who can do it. You may have a nursing assistant on your unit that is just a super champion and loves to do this kind of stuff, and that's fine. If they're passionate about it, if they're great at leading it, especially if they're great at pulling people into the conversation. Sometimes that's a hard skill to get. Continue to increase that team engagement. So these were both really engaged, good examples of huddles. But like I mentioned before, to get people to really start talking and to understand the context of what they're talking about is tricky. One thing that we learned through our pilot groups and going back is that we really needed to put the reason for the huddle incorporate it into our work every day, because it's very easy to lose sight of that and for it just to become another reason to be all together in one room for 10 minutes. And if you remember that this is really your opportunity to play a part in proactively planning for your day, that conversation comes a little bit more easy. And by keeping it brief, so both of these were very brief, they covered a lot of information, but people do find value in that. They know if they can get there and get what they need and get out, then they're more likely to participate. And show the results. And so Heather and I were talking about this a little bit because one of the teams that I'm working with was struggling a little bit with that piece, like, why are we here? And I said to the coach for that team, I said, make sure that you celebrate those little things. Like, hey, I wanted to point out that yesterday we were able to avoid da-da-da because so-and-so brought up such and such. And connecting those dots for your frontline staff is huge. We don't always get the time to do that in our work when we're hurrying from one thing to another, to realize that, just by peer checking that person to grab the call light, that was a good thing. Or, knowing that that discharge was coming and that somebody was ready to back me up on it, that, we really prevented that bottleneck. So anytime you can celebrate those successes from the day before, it really helps to drive home the point to those frontline users that, hey, this is valuable. This is saving you time in your work. It's making you more efficient. It's getting you at the bedside more. You're not running around trying to put out fires because we're getting to them before they become a flame. And
all right. So as I mentioned before, so we created with the toolkit some different types of standard work, and this is just an example of part of the whole process in order to close that loop and to do that, evolve and improve that Amanda was just talking about, is there's an observation tool, and the observation tool has embedded in it the key elements that people should be hitting with their huddle. So does it have a true north focus? Is it less than 10 minutes? Is everyone involved, et cetera? And it's an easy way for someone to come in with a fresh set of eyes and do an observation and to make sure that we are maintaining the standard over time.
And in order to do that, by doing that, what we are ensuring is that we can actually meet some of these outcomes, and we have the metrics to do it. So huddles, proactively planning for the day, those tools in both the continuous improvement world and the safety world are shown to increase employee engagement and physician engagement scores. So if everybody is actively involved in a morning huddle, it's really hard to be disengaged from your work and from your unit and from the people that you're working with. And we should see that reflected in those scores. Improved team communication, when everybody's showing up and those conversations are happening, you've already done that. You've already taken that step towards open communication, direct, real time. Increased near-miss reporting. Everybody knows that this is my love, right? Near-miss voice, whoop, whoop. And that's what we're going to see. I mean, we're putting out some of those fires and we're identifying them before they really become something. And so when those things are brought to light in the huddle, it's important to get them into voice or into the reporting system so that we can track them across the healthcare system. We're starting to share that data, right? So if we're fixing it here, we can easily fix it over there if we know about it. Improved quality and patient outcomes. So those are those true north metrics. When we're watching those days and those days go up on our days since, when we're watching our number of reportables go down or the days since those go up, we are hitting those true north metrics. We're driving that change as an organization by these steps that we're taking on our units and in our departments. Improved patient satisfaction, obviously, with HCAHPS. When people are reminded every day, Tiffany will start doing her happy dance over there, because we're encouraging those questions and we're hitting those things that the patients are telling us continuously are very important to them, and we're showing it now. We heard you, we understand, and we're going to reach out and start being proactive in addressing some of these issues. And then how are we going to know the system-wide standard is happening? Well, we have that observation tool. Our number is going to go from 70% to 100%. We're going to have Steve out there taking videos for us all over of these great huddles that are happening. And we're hopefully going to see all of the rest of these metrics that are saying, hey, we did the right thing here, and we did it in the right way. Terry's going to take it on home with our rollout plan.
So the rollout plan. So the decision was made to actually start with nursing units because of that high interface and interaction with patients and the delivery of care. Nursing units and wherever care is delivered is a high risk area, but it's also a high opportunity area for preventative measures to be put into place. So we'll start with nursing inpatient units and then start looking at some of those procedural areas that come next. And we are doing pilots in nursing areas, and also we're doing some things in parallel. So we're doing some pilots in clinical ancillary, infusion clinic, and in a couple of the ambulatory clinics, urgent care, and as I mentioned before, THV. So starting the huddle process in those care delivery type areas, and then moving on from there. But eventually we'll be including service and support, business units, and the corporate offices as well. So right now we're in the pilot areas that I was just talking about. So the infusion clinic at the Cowell Family Cancer Center, and B3 South, MCHC's urgent care, THV. They came through a 90-minute working and training session. They were able to leave with a draft of their huddle board, with an outline of what their script might be, and then we just follow up with them and teamed up with them with a huddle coach role. And they're the ones who've been trialing some of these standard work and the standard tools and giving us feedback as we evolve them. And we got back together with them to see how they were doing, and they gave us their input. Things are looking pretty good. So now we're ready to move into a more broad phase, and we're going to choose the next units that'll start going through the 90-minute training, assigning them with some huddle coaches, and doing the PDSA until they have a good routine set up and they're feeling confident. And then encouraging their leaders to be a part of this process in their leadership rounding, kind of checking in and seeing how they're doing. Then the next phase will be part of the Continuous Improvement Department is working with a couple of cohorts at the hospital, once in Traverse City and then in Cadillac and Grayling and Paul Oliver and Manistee. And those cohorts are learning the management system, and part of the management system training will include the huddle training so that they can go and start deploying the shift huddle in addition to their improvement huddles that they'll be deploying. And from there we go try to take care of the rest of inpatient nursing, the other clinical ancillary areas, and then spread. Each hospital kind of be in charge of its own pacing for their spread. So what questions do you have? You had two fast talkers up here.
We are fast talkers. We should have prefaced with that.
Yeah. It's close. It's still draft. I think it's close to being
Very close.
Yep, very close to being available. But yep, it'll be available.
And when it is, we can let you know. We'll send it out like through the website, and then our materials will be on the conference website as well. So those will be available there.
So do you have instructions in terms of jumping at this format before we actually are formally involved?
Right.
I wouldn't say no to anybody, I don't think, because any huddle is better than no huddle. And like I said, we're jumping into people who have been huddling and some who have never done it.
And yes, and we need, again, people to go first in all of those areas. So like I said, things can start to happen in parallel.
And the only thing I would say is because we do have enough, there's a handful of us now. If it's something that you're going to jump on and start using the tools, that's great. Like Terry has a beautiful agenda type thing that gives you kind of this is what you do for this amount of time. And then there's the checklist that you can customize. But we also have the people from the cohorts, from the pilot units that are starting to use the observation tool and can be a great resource for you to just say, hey, Meredith, would you come watch my huddle and just let me know what you're thinking? As kind of an informal check and peer coaching until it's fully rolled out in your area. So yeah. What other questions do you guys have?
Or comments? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So 75% of the, hey, there's tape up here and I'm now stuck to the floor. I won't. 75% of the CBO, so the Central Billing Office, works from home, and they have a pod structure, and each of their pods has a daily huddle, and they do it all virtually over a conference line, but they again follow the script, and people report out in a very organized fashion, so it works. So it's, being creative. I don't know if how many of you have Skype for Business on your computers, but there are lots of different options that we could explore. And your frequency might be every day, might not be every day, depending on what the workload is in your area.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. That's why we kind of use that wording, every major shift, because maybe your unit might look at Monday morning as the beginning of a major shift. Maybe that's going to be your week, if you kind of plan that way. There's some construction project crews that do that kind of stuff, and so they huddle Monday morning. Sometimes they have some tiered huddles, and then that kind of serves as their face-to-face, proactively communicating, and then they use other methods. The group that I'm coaching with right now had a huddle. It was a once-a-week virtual huddle on a piece of paper that went out by email and was posted in their general location, which again is just a great jumping-off point. And even standardizing that type of communication with this healthcare standard of True North framework is a better spot to start than nowhere. That's a good question.
What else?
All right, well, we got it in our time, so thank you guys very much for having us.